medical astrology and the case of Kate Middleton. In this video, we are going to look at some basic principles of esoteric medicine, medical astrology, and we're going to apply those and understand the development of the illness of the Princess of Wales, Kate Middleton. Okay, so 3 things we're going to do in this video. First, I will give you some basic principles on esoteric medicine, and then some basic principles of medical astrology, which is related but not the same. And then we're going to look at the charts of Kate Middleton to apply all of this. So when we talk about esoteric medicine, it's basically the understanding that different conditions in your body, they are grounded in a misalignment of the soul to its purpose or to its path. There is something happening on the soul level, on the level of the energies of the soul, which then manifests itself into certain physical expressions. Now, this understanding, all of the traditional medicine schools and philosophies, they knew about this. And recently, it's being rediscovered after a couple of centuries, after a few centuries really in modernity, of having gotten lost, because modern medicine was basically looking at the human body just like a machine. You know, something is broken, you need to fix it, you need to change it as if you're looking at a car or something. Like you need to replace this part, right? And modern medicine was basically not able ever to tell you the reasons for anything, apart from, statistics, there's a statistical chance this might happen, but never, why has this person gotten this particular condition and this other person has gotten the other condition? Now, this is starting to change now, where modern medicine is starting to get closer again to traditional medicine, to schools and philosophies like Ayurvedic medicine or traditional Chinese medicine or Tibbe Unani in the Middle Eastern traditions. And there are more schools and teachings of traditional medicine which are much more holistic. And this holistic understanding, it's starting to come back into a dialogue with modern medicine. Obviously, the goal is not to throw one away for the other. The goal is to integrate the two into a higher science, a new medicine, a new understanding of healing. And in the esoteric medicine, what we have to understand is that we are dealing really with energies that we can read on the level of the soul if we want to understand why they're showing themselves in different parts of the body. Each part of the body has a certain correspondence to an archetypal energy, which in turn you can see in the correspondence tables and lists that show you the archetypal astrological principles as well, the astrological rulerships of the different parts of the body. So to give you a couple of examples, when somebody is presenting with an issue of the spine, let's say the spine is moved to the side or it's starting to become somewhat crooked and it's not anymore straight and it's not carrying the weight of the body in an upward straight manner, the modern scientist, modern medicine will just tell you, observe this and just say, okay, there's a statistical probability this can happen and then this is what we can do against it. But they will never be able to say, why does this happen? Why did this happen to this person? Whereas in esoteric medicine, we will understand that a crooked spine, when the spine is moving to the side, it's a sign that the person's soul is moving away from a pole of life. From the masculine feminine pole, we have 2 poles, is not sufficiently integrating one of the poles because it is afraid of it or it has issues with it. It's either not in tune with its own inner masculine or its own inner feminine side. And this is what leads to the crookedness of the spine. As a result, you're going to also have, or concomitantly, you're also going to have issues with showing spine, standing up for what you believe in, standing up for who you are. All of those expressions or all of those issues on the soul level can then show themselves in that issue on the physical level. As another example, say somebody has an issue with hearing. they're developing an issue with hearing. Their hearing is starting to deteriorate and it's starting to get worse for various reasons. Obviously, there's always going to be some physical reason as well. But why does this physical reason happen to this person? We need to move away from kind of the direct material causes and look at the destiny causes, the causes in the person's destiny. So when a person has this issue with their hearing, we, on an esoteric medicine level, we will say that there is an issue on the soul level with having closed oneself off to certain voices in life that should be heard. Perhaps this person is not hearing or listening enough to their own inner voice. Perhaps this person is not listening enough to advice that's being given to them, or is listening too much to what other people are saying. So on all of those levels, there is an issue that the soul has of having swerved away from its optimal and holistic state through fears and through oppressions, through repressions, and it's showing itself. The body's soul is basically telling you by manifesting this issue as a physical issue in the body, in the organ that represents that particular problem. So for example, the person who didn't listen to their inner voice or didn't listen to certain people's advice at that point might develop certain physical hearing issues as well. As another example, if you look at having foot problems in the feet are what represents symbolically how solidly you stand in the world. So if you develop certain issues with the feet, and obviously there's also still differences with which part, there's so many nuances and subtleties, if it's the heel of the foot, or if it's the toes, or if it's the arc of the foot, they all archetypically stand for different energies and they have different principles governing them, therefore also different astrological principles. But in general, the foot is about having a solid foothold in life, standing solidly in life. So if there's some issues with that, if the person has neglected building up a solid foothold in life, then the foot can manifest this on a physical level as having certain issues, whether that's with the joints or whether that's with the heel or other parts of the foot. So if you think this through, I'm sure you can start to understand now the principles of esoteric medicine, right? Esoteric medicine. And obviously what I'm saying here is not medical advice. This is an esoteric science, which is a philosophy which is supposed to supplement and not replace medicine. It's supposed to supplement and add a philosophical component. So you're dealing with the energies. Obviously, if your foot is broken, or if you have some issue with your chest or whatever the case may be, you should see a doctor and get that fixed, right? You should, use whatever modern medicine can offer you for fixing those things. There's nothing wrong with fixing things that are broken. But the point is that in order to understand why these things even happen in the first place, you need to go beyond just fixing. You need to understand healing, and you need to understand the reasons for why the body gives you those messages and how to make the body be aligned with the higher purpose of the soul so that it can be whole and healed and holistic and not fall into dis-ease. Dis-ease is basically a falling away from the path of the soul, which is a whole path. Now, in astrology, in medical astrology, we're basically applying these very same principles, and we're thinking of energies that manifest themselves because they're not sufficiently lived. So if you don't sufficiently live this principle, then it's going to manifest itself. If you move away from that full intended fulfillment of that energy, then it's going to manifest itself differently in your life. As an example, say somebody has a Jupiter in the 9th house. So very strong, elevated. Jupiter is strong in the 9th house, right? Jupiter is expansion, wants to bring you kind of big expansion and big opportunities and development of your horizons. In this case, the 9th house is about your horizons, right? So it wants you, your soul basically wants you to expand your horizons, right? You have incarnated in order to expand your horizons, to see new countries and learn about lots of different fields of spirituality and philosophy and higher learning and all of these things. That's expanding your horizons, Jupiter in the ninth house. Let's say this person doesn't do that, right? They don't do that for whatever reason. Maybe they have a square from Saturn coming into that Jupiter. Maybe they have some other hard aspects. Maybe they just don't listen to themselves. They don't do that, right? They neglect this mission that they have to expand their horizons. So what happens? The soul will start to send a lot of subtle signals. It will say like, hey, this is what you're supposed to, why are you not doing this, right? And if the person continues to neglect this, if they continue to neglect this direction that is written in their spiritual code, in their spirit code, right, in their spiritual DNA, if they continue to disregard that mission, what will happen is that the body will compensate after some time by manifesting that Jupiter principle elsewhere physically. For instance, as a very benign form, they could become, very obese. They could become very fat. Why? Because it's the Jupiter principle. Jupiter is expansion, right? They're supposed to go and expand their horizons. They're not expanding the horizons. Okay, I'm going to expand your waistline instead, right? You're going to get very fat. And then that's a benign form. Obviously, there's going to be much more worse forms of this than, things could expand like a tumor. A tumor could expand, is also a form of expansion, right? And it could be a tumor that's somewhere that's related to the ninth house and the sign that is in the ninth house and so on and so forth. And then you're going to start to understand how certain neglect or certain moving away, moving into disalignment with your path, with your purpose, after some time, it can manifest, and it will manifest into physical issues, right? Which is why we say mens sana in corpore sano, which is basically a healthy mind in a healthy body. Actually, it should be spiritus sanus in corpore sano, because it's the spirit, not the mind, that is at question here, right? Though spirit is the higher kind of entity still. But the point is, in order for the body to be healthy, long-term, sustainably healthy, right? Not even get the diseases in the first place. It is important for the spirit to be aligned with its purpose, with its divine purpose, the purpose for which it has incarnated for. So self-knowledge is important. Self-knowledge is the first step for being healthy in the long term. So now that we have worked through these principles, now that I've shared these principles with you, we can apply these principles and we can understand the case of Kate Middleton better. Now, Kate Middleton, Catherine Middleton, the Princess of Wales, she had a very high profile case of cancer that she developed. She was away from the public eye for some time, and then, came back with there was the news that she had cancer, and recently again it was said that she underwent treatment. I actually talked about this in an earlier video. Also, at this point, I should remind you, subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so yet, and like this video. It's very important that you do that. Tack, 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 tack. And now, when we talk about Catherine Middleton, to go back to the Princess of Wales, she had this very high profile case of cancer. She actually, she seems to be recovering. I talked about this in an early video earlier this year, where I looked at her chart and just had the insight that, she would have a very public recovery. She would come back, and this is how it looks like it's happening. But when we look at her chart, we should be able to see the signs for this particular disease. Again, keeping in mind the principles of esoteric medicine and medical astrology that I mentioned before. Now, here's her chart, the chart of Catherine Middleton. And in her chart, you can see, something very significant right away. If you look at it, the very, very significant placements and aspect figure, which is this triangle here, right? This T square, which is a very tense figure, right? A very tense figure, especially when both the sun and the moon are involved, right? The sun and the moon, and then the lunar nodes as well. The north node here, Rahu and Ketu, right? So the lunar node is involved, and the sun and the moon are in this opposition, which on its own is already, tense. But then you have here these super hard kind of planets, the malefics, with Saturn and Pluto both hitting both this opposition of the moon and the sun, right? So this is very tense. This is very kind of a very difficult, challenging, karmic lesson that she has to go through in this lifetime. And this lesson, what is this about? It's about moving away from the south node, right? The south node is what you come into this life with. You're already very good at this, but you have to start to move away from it gradually in your life. And you have to move towards the north node, right? The north node, which is here, right? So what is this? The sun in Capricorn with the south node in 6. This is what she's good at, right? Which is about status, right? Representing status and authority and prestige and decorum and all of the trappings of representative power, right? And all of the protocol, right? That's all the Capricorn sun, protocol and prestige, right? And all of that, which she's really good at, obviously, her consciousness is there, and also her past life experience is there with her south node. Right? She's really good at that. Obviously, then with the square to Saturn as well, it just fortifies it, right? But all of this is actually what she has to put aside, and she has to move away from in this lifetime. She has to move towards her moon, which is in Cancer, and she has to move towards the Rahu, which is in the 12th house, right? The north node in the 12th house. So she has to move towards being just simply a very nurturing family mother, right? And also to have time for the discovery of her own hidden aspects, all of the aspects that only come out in the hidden, in the seclusion of being for yourself, being away from others, right? Being in the kind of in the dark, being in this, being away simply from others. That's the 12th house, right? And being in the privacy of the family, right? That's what she has to develop. That's her karmic lesson. She has to move away from all of the prestige and the power and the protocol, and instead she has to move towards this sensitivity and nurturing side and the caring mother, simply, who has a lot of time for developing an inner world of mysteries in her life, right? And obviously what's holding her back from that is, like, literally she has the job that is the most, demanding in terms of public protocol that you can have. She's a British royal, right? In the royal family. Like, literally everything they do is, regulated. Everything they do is there's lots of workers there, lots of, managers and whatever they call it, I don't know, people there who managing and planning their schedules, right? And everywhere they go, they have to be representative, and it's all about, making a nice figure when they speak and when they wave and when they see people, and all of the maintaining the decorum, basically, of the role. And as you can see here in her chart, right, it's the Saturn Pluto here, which is putting all of this pressure on this, right? It's kind of a very dark energy. And obviously you have to say to that too, that the current royal house is not necessarily a place of angelic beings. If you look at the King Charles, I didn't do a deep study of King Charles. Perhaps I'm going to do that in future videos. If you want to see that, let me know in the comments. If you want to see what type of soul King Charles is, I can tell you this much. There's a lot of darkness there. There's a lot of dark forces there that are working through him and with him. And I can show you this if you want to know more on this in future videos. But back to Kate Middleton. So she's in this place where there is a lot of darkness around her and a lot of discipline and power, and this darkness, and which comes through her relationship. Obviously her relationship is the Libra, right? Is the Libra. I'm not saying necessarily that it comes through William, but it comes through William's family, definitely through William's family, right? And it comes into her life and it kind of adds this vast strain into her already very difficult karmic challenge that she has, right? She is the face of the royals in many ways, but she has to move away from that. She has to become this very nurturing and very vulnerable motherly figure, right? That's her karmic lesson and her karmic challenge. And now with this difficult challenge that she has already, when you have the sun and the moon and you have these big, these difficult planets like Saturn and Pluto involved, this is always going to be prone for some big issues in life. And then obviously in these years now, and this is already going on for some time, 23 it started, 22, 23 it started, all of this time you had here the transiting Chiron. Here's Chiron. Chiron activations are always the ones that bring trouble with regards to medical conditions, diseases, right? It's about Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer, but also, it's first the wound. It only becomes a healer much later. At first, it's the wound. It's literally like, the illness, the wound is Chiron initially, right? When Chiron hits you, and here Chiron is hitting her in an opposition to Saturn, right? So Chiron opposite Saturn is a very difficult transit, medically speaking. At the same time, Chiron is squaring her moon and squaring her sun, right? And this has been going on for all this time now, right? So any astrologer, anybody who understands these cycles, archetypal cycles, would have told her in this situation that, okay, this is going to be difficult. These few years will be very difficult, right? Very difficult, and you should get ready for some issues, medically speaking. And obviously, it's not always necessary depending on how evolved the person is. Because as I told you in the beginning, if the person is, the more evolved the person is, the more they actually can listen to the demands and the desires of the soul, the less the soul needs to show them the hard way by manifesting as a disease in the body, right? So obviously, it's not necessary for you to get a disease whenever you have a hard transit like this, but it's definitely something that can happen if you haven't yet fully embraced the message of the soul. And in this case, what does she get? What did we say? We said that she has to move towards what? We said she has to move towards her moon here, the moon, right? The moon in Cancer. The moon in Cancer. This is what she has to move towards. So as long as she's still neglecting this, right, she's going to have these issues, these karmic issues. As long as she's still too much in the prestige and the protocol and all of the public, shows and so on and so forth, which she has to move away from, she's going to have the issues with the moon, right, with her moon principle. And what is moon? In astrology, moon and Cancer specifically, Cancer stands for the stomach area. The stomach area, abdominal area, the uterus, anything that's to do with birth as well as processing of emotions. The stomach area is symbolically, standing for these aspects and areas. And this, lo and behold, is exactly the type of cancer that she developed, right? We don't know the specifics, but we know that was some abdominal kind of surgeries or operations done. So it's in this area, right, that she has developed the cancer as well. And Cancer, archetypically, Cancer is very, very complex. There's aggression there, there's growth, it's very complex, many different principles at the same time. But archetypically, essentially, it's about if you really significantly neglect a principle in your life, right, that you don't allow it to express itself the way that it wants to, then it can manifest itself as a compensatory excessive growth, right, on the physical level, which is Cancer, right? And again, these are esoteric, philosophical supplements to medicine. They never replace the modern official medicine. None of this is medical advice. This is a philosophical advice, right? So don't kind of come and say like, oh, blah, blah, you're doing this and that. You shouldn't be doing this. I'm well aware of the regulatory frameworks around giving medical advice. This is not medical advice. This is philosophical advice, right? So, but now back to the chart. In her chart, we have actually some signs for her being able to come out of this well, and that's that the Chiron natally, the natal chart, is in a very strong position with a sextile to the moon and a trine to the sun. So, she has basically this ability to heal herself, regenerate herself, even through, unconventional methods and integrating higher knowledge into her life. So I strongly suspect and believe that, whatever I'm saying here in this video, she will be receiving already from good advisors. Her chart shows this clearly, from good advisors who will be directing her in the right direction so that she can actually have the healing process, not just on the physical level through the physical, interventions, which are always necessary through the modern medicine, but also on the spiritual level, which is important if you want to holistically heal. Now, I think that's a great place to wrap this video up. Let's wish Kate Middleton a good recovery, and let me know in the comments what you want to see next with regards to medical astrology. If you have questions around this, I'm looking to do a series of videos, a new series of videos and other types of content on this topic. It's a very, very important topic, one of the most insightful areas of what we can do with the esoteric science. If you have yourself experiences around certain conditions that you had and where you were able to relate them to things that you changed spiritually, and you maybe experienced something and then you realize that you need to change something on how you live your life and make spiritual changes so that the physical can then align and attune and improve itself as well, then also let me know in the comments. I'd love to know about those stories. And also, one more time, the reminder, if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with everybody, with your friends. And I look forward to seeing you in the next videos. Be well, all the best, be blessed.